It started off like any ordinary semester at college. I had just moved into a small apartment on the edge of campus, juggling classes, a part-time job at the library, and the general stress of being on my own for the first time. And at first, I didn't notice him, the man in the grey hoodie who started showing up in the background of my life like a shadow that refused to fade. The first time I saw him, I was walking home from the library at dusk, earbuds in, hands in my pockets, when I passed by the convenience store on Main and caught a glimpse of someone standing just outside the entrance, staring, not at the door, but directly at me. And even though I only caught it in my peripheral vision, something about his stillness, the unnatural rigidity of his posture, sent a cold shiver down my spine. I dismissed it as paranoia and kept walking, but over the next few days he appeared again and again, sometimes on the far side of the street, sometimes at the edge of campus, always in that same grey hoodie with the hood drawn low over his face, always just watching, never approaching. And no one else ever seemed to notice him, as if he existed only in the margins of my world, just out of reach, yet impossibly close. I stopped going out after dark, started doubling back and taking alternate routes, but he was always there, like he could sense where I would be, before even I did. Once I saw him standing outside my apartment building as I looked down from my window, unmoving in the orange glow of the street lamp, and even though my apartment was on the 3rd floor, I felt his eyes on me like a physical weight. I told my friends, my roommate, even the campus security, but they all shrugged it off, saying maybe it was just a coincidence, maybe someone who looked familiar, or maybe I was just stressed from classes, but I knew that wasn't it. And the breaking point came one night when I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of soft knocking, not on my front door, but on the glass sliding door that led to the tiny balcony outside my bedroom. And when I pulled back the curtain, heart pounding in my throat, I saw him closer than ever, just a pane of glass away, his face still hidden in that damned hood, standing there with one hand pressed against the glass, like he was feeling for a way in. I screamed, stumbled back, woke my roommate, who called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone without a trace, no footprints, no evidence he had ever been there, except for the foggy outline of a handprint on the cold glass. And for a while after that, I stayed with friends, too scared to be alone, jumping at shadows, until the school offered to move me to a different dorm across campus. I accepted, desperate to feel safe again, but the dread never really left me. Every time I pass a crowd, every time I glance at reflections in store windows or feel that eerie sensation that I'm being watched, I half expect to see that grey hoodie again somewhere in the background, waiting, patient, knowing I'll let my guard down eventually and that next time he won't be content to just watch. When I first moved into the house on Willow Street, it felt like a lucky break. Cheap rent, a peaceful neighborhood, and a quiet upstairs tenant who, according to the landlord, kept to himself and rarely made noise. And for the first month or two, everything was fine, more than fine really, because I'd been desperate to live alone after years of chaotic roommates. But gradually, things started to feel off in ways I couldn't immediately explain, like waking up at 3:47 a.m. every night without fail, or the faint sound of someone pacing upstairs, always just when I was about to fall asleep, the kind of slow, deliberate footfalls that seemed to match my breathing. And when I finally mentioned it to the landlord, she just laughed and said, "The guy upstairs, Mr. Alden, was quiet as a mouse and probably just restless some nights, nothing to worry about. But the thing is, I never saw Mr. Alden, not once, not in the driveway, not getting mail, not walking past my kitchen window. And every time I asked about him, people gave vague responses like, 'Oh yeah, he's harmless,' or 'he's lived there forever.' And the more I noticed, the more paranoid I became. Doors would be unlocked. When I was sure I'd locked them, small things in my apartment slightly moved, like my coffee mug being placed on the left side of the sink instead of the right, or my toothbrush damp at night when I hadn't brushed my teeth since the morning. And once I came home to find my living room TV turned to a channel I never watch, the volume up high enough that my neighbor texted me about it. I started staying up at night, trying to catch whatever was happening. And one night, while half asleep on the couch, I heard a soft knock on the ceiling, right above me, like someone knew I was awake. And then I heard it again. 3 knocks, slow and methodical, directly overhead, so I grabbed a broom and tapped back, thinking maybe it was some weird game or a neighbor being creepy. But the reply came instantly, louder this time. 5 knocks, then silence, then whispering, so faint it was almost like static. And I pressed my ear to the wall and held my breath. And I swear I heard my name being repeated again and again, soft and slurred, like someone mumbling it through a mouth full of water. I finally lost it and stormed upstairs the next day to confront Mr. Alden. But when I knocked on the door, no one answered. So I tried again, louder this time, and the door creaked open slowly with no resistance, revealing a dim, dusty apartment that looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. No furniture, no lights, just a bare mattress in the center of the floor and piles of old newspapers stacked along the walls, all dated from over a decade ago. And at the center of the room, scratched into the hardwood beneath the mattress, was my name, dozens of times, etched over and over like some kind of obsession. I backed out of there and called the police, shaking and barely able to form sentences. But by the time they showed up, the apartment was locked again and everything was gone. No mattress, no papers, no markings on the floor, and worst of all, no record of a tenant named Mr. Alden ever having lived there. And when I confronted the landlord, her tone changed completely, like she was suddenly afraid of something, and she begged me to just let it go. Told me there were some things about that house she couldn't explain, and that I should leave if I felt unsafe, and so I did. I packed up that night and never went back. But the story doesn't end there, because a few months later, after I'd moved in with a friend across town, I started receiving letters in the mail, handwritten in shaky, uneven lettering, always addressed to me with no return address, and each one contained the same thing, a sheet of paper with just my name, written on it over and over and over, and at the bottom in a different ink a short message: "I found you again." It wasn't until my sister's behavior started changing that I even realized something was wrong. At first it was little things, like how she'd triple-check the locks every night, or how she stopped walking her usual route from class, always calling someone to talk on the phone as she made her way home. And when I asked her if something had happened, she just smiled and brushed it off, claiming she'd watched too many late-night true crime videos and was just being cautious. But it didn't feel like normal caution. It felt like fear, deep, gnawing, constant fear, the kind that lives in your skin and won't let go. And I began noticing how she'd freeze when the doorbell rang, how she'd stop mid-conversation and tilt her head slightly, as if trying to catch some sound only she could hear. And the worst part was she never wanted to be alone. She'd ask to sleep in my room, pretend she needed help with homework she could easily handle herself. And whenever she was alone for even a few minutes, she'd startle so easily it made my heart pound too, like one time when I simply opened the fridge and she gasped, dropping a glass in the sink. Then one night, after weeks of watching her sink deeper into whatever silent panic she was battling, I caught her staring out the window for hours, eyes locked on a dark street corner just beyond the reach of the streetlights. And when I finally asked what she was looking at, she hesitated, then whispered, "He stands there every night. He never moves." And I felt a strange chill when I looked and saw nothing, just empty pavement and a flickering light. But she was so certain, so terrified, and something about her voice told me she wasn't imagining it. After that, she started closing the curtains, avoiding windows, and even covering up mirrors with old sheets, like she couldn't bear to see her own reflection. And eventually, I managed to get her to open up, slowly, piece by piece. And what, she told me, still haunts me. She said it began at the grocery store. A man in a beige jacket, average-looking, forgettable even, who stood a little too close in the checkout line and seemed to follow her to her car. And then she saw him again, at the campus coffee shop, sitting 2 tables away, staring just past her shoulder like he was watching her through some invisible veil. And from there it escalated. She'd catch glimpses of him across the street, in her lecture hall's back row, even once in the laundry room of our apartment complex, just standing there with an empty basket, watching the spin cycle like it held some secret only he knew. And no matter how fast she walked, how far she drove, how unpredictable her schedule was, he was always nearby, never close enough to accuse, but never far enough to forget. When she went to the police, they said they couldn't do anything without proof, without a confrontation or a name, and that only made it worse. He seemed to sense the boundaries of the law like a predator sniffing the edge of an electric fence, always lurking right on the line, sometimes even waving at her just once, a slow mechanical gesture like a puppet being pulled by strings. Things became unbearable the night she found a note slipped under her bedroom door, just a single word scrawled in black ink. Soon. And when we checked the security footage from our hallway camera, we saw nothing, not a single frame of movement, as if he had phased into the building through the walls or appeared when the lens blinked. We begged the landlord to change the locks, install better lighting, but there was only so much we could do in a building with thin walls and endless shadows. And then came the final night, the night I woke up to her screaming, not words, but raw panic, the sound of someone being pulled into the dark by something they couldn't fight. And I rushed into her room to find her window wide open, curtains blowing in the cold air, and her gone, just gone. No sign of a struggle, no footprints, nothing but a damp, lingering smell like soil and rust. The police launched a search, her face plastered on flyers and online posts, but it was as if she'd never existed, and the only thing left behind was her phone, lying neatly on her pillow with a single open message thread at the top, a conversation I never knew she was having, filled with her texts to someone who never replied, just time-stamped locations that matched her movements, her school, the coffee shop, our building, and finally a message sent from the unknown number at 2:53 a.m., just minutes before she vanished. Thank you for finally letting me in. And since then, every night, I sit by the same window, staring at that dark corner she once watched, wondering if I'll see him standing there, if he's already found someone new, or if maybe, just maybe, he's waiting for me now.